Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta, what's happening over in Japan, and how it'll impact R1. Today, we're talking about post-rotation. It is finally here over Japan. Just how much has the meta shaken up? We have a ton of decks to talk about, from the Gym Challenge, from the City Leagues, as well as also what the Heavenly Kings think are the best ways to play some of the brand new archetypes. We've seen some of the old existing archetypes kind of evolve and change to this new metagame. We've seen Charizard, Chien-Pao, and heck, even Arceus Visa rise to the top of the City League results. We'll sort of break down exactly where the meta kind of falls in the last season of the City League Championships, our current metagame right now, what we can kind of expect about the rest of our metagame as well as we go into the rest of the regionals and league cups. I really, guys, hope you enjoy these videos, and thank you so much for the support. I've been uploading these videos for pretty much a year now since post-rotation happened over in Scarlet and Violet, and I just think Pokemon at TCG right now just keeps on getting more and more exciting. So without further ado, let's break down what the past metagame was from the City League Championships. We see here that Charizard, Tina, and Gardevoir are up there as one of the top archetypes from the previous sort of format, or our current one right now. This is definitely something to be keeping in mind of if you want to be testing, if you just want to know exactly where the metagame is sort of evolving going into it. One thing you always got to consider about what some of the low percentages are here. We saw Chien-Pao didn't do too well, but in Liverpool, it got a top 16 result. So it is still a threat in the metagame right now. Similar thing with Roy Moon. I think the cat's out of the bag. Roy Moon is a very, very strong deck. We're going to talk about that in post-rotation as well. I do think Roy Moon is going to evolve to be a much stronger version of itself, and also just the rest of it as well. Keep in mind that we are losing a huge amount of support for Tina as well as also Gardevoir. Tina losing kind of like Battle for VIP bars and Path to Peak. Gardevoir losing the huge sort of Gardevoir attacking options, while Fog Crystal, Levelball, a ton of support to go with it. So these decks here kind of might fall down a little bit of the radar just while they build its respect. Similar how when Paradox Rift kind of went evolved, Gardevoir was very lost right now. People thought, oh, it was a dead form deck, but ended up doing very, very well getting top form. So definitely stuff to really keep in mind on. But that's enough talking about past rotation. You're here for post rotation. Let's look at what the Heavenly Kings think are the best ways to play the new archetype. So if you don't know who the Heavenly Kings are, they're like the 4 best players. They're like the Pokemon mascot, the player mascots over there in Japan, one of the best players in the game right now. So we're looking at this Future Box here, and this is what someone thinks is the best way to play Future Box. I'm kind of doing a little bit of testing with Future Box, and I really, really enjoy it. It reminds me a ton of TDK, like Team Plasma in the day. We have Miraidon for that really good setup of attack, getting 2 basic engines from your deck all the way attaching to your Pokemon any way you like. We have Cobalion or Iron Crown to deal more damage. We have Iron Hand to take more prizes, and also we have like the Iron Valiant to do that huge sort of damage output. Now we've seen the debate, do we play Iron Valiant or the other Miraidon EX? Miraidon EX does 20 more damage, doing a base of 220, well this Iron Valiant does 200 damage, but that extra 20 when it moves into the active spot. So it's definitely something to be really considerate about of this sort of archetype. I think it's very strong. I think the A-Spec works really, really well with it. I think the Devolution TM is really good to help you in that Zard and even the Lost Tina matchup. Any deck which kind of like de-evolve anything is a super, super strong. I think it definitely has a lot of legs to it. I've been really enjoying the testing of it. But again, it might feel a little bit slow. The limit of damage output of this deck can really kind of put to offer. But I think it's a really fun deck really trying out, especially in the new format. Another one is Walking Wake. And I really like this card. I generally think like it got a lot better, especially with that the Burbank City Gym sort of reprint sort of aspect, but this player has opted not to play that one, opting with Town Store. Town Store I'm going to go into. I think it could be one of the strongest stadiums going into the next rotation. We don't really have that generic, really strong stadium card. We do have Pokestop, which is played in quite a lot of stuff, but that's really aggressive draw factor. Of Town Store can get any sort of item, tool card you might potentially need. Forest Hill Stone, Emergency Jelly, the Booster Capture Energy, or any sort of relevant tool card for the deck, I think is very, very strong. Obviously, Town Store is very important because you can use a Brute Bonnet to get some poison sort of factor in here. Opting to play the Greninja Old, but also playing Palkia. Why do I like Palkia in this deck here? Well, you can power up a Greninja, you can power up a Palkia, really good attacker, and also you can power up a Walking Wake, and I think the thing is very strong. 270 damage, pretty powerful, especially to gain an extra poison damage as well. I'm a big fan of this deck. I think it's very strong, could have a lot of legs in it as well. And also having 280 HP when it has the Ancient Boots to capture energy attached to it, very, very nice. I don't know if it's got as much legs. It didn't really get the results it kind of like required from this weekend, but we've only had 3 days of this format right now, so it's still very, very early doors. Raging Bolt is definitely an archetype which has a ton of hype to it. Is this the next Reshiram? Is this an archetype which is just like, oh, it's a Chien-Pao or Gholdengo, which are doing very, very well right now in the metagame, but it's got higher HP. It has a good sort of mid to late game, especially with the likes of Sandy Shocks, and really good secondary attacking options. Having that Koraidon Slithering, I really like it. I was thinking Slithering is a really good attacking option, doing 120 damage. Pretty good, though it does do 90 damage to yourself, but You're hitting weakness on a ton of stuff as well, so it's very, very strong. Raging Bolt obviously does 70 times the amount of energies you discard in play. You have Professor Sardi, you have Sandy Shocks, you have multiple ways to energy accelerate. People are even debating having the energy sticker to flip a coin and attach some energies that way. I think it's a very, very fun deck. Again, it might be a little bit slower. Losing Battle VIP pass in the format, we're going to become a little bit of slower decks. That's why opting play a high count of drawing cards like Trekking Shoes, like also having the Greninja in this deck here, but having the maximum amounts of Nest Ball and Ultra Ball to really fuel out the attacking option, as well as also getting your attackers out as quickly as possible. This is definitely more like the early Roy Moon list, where it's pretty much a Sarda box. You play a ton of Sardas in here, but I don't know if this deck really does have legs to it. I have done a little bit of testing with this archetype, but it definitely sees a lot of work to it, and I'll be posting my list very, very soon. And finally, we're looking at Daichi. He always has a fun sort of archetype list here, and it is the Iron Thorns. Iron Thorns, for those who don't know, does 70, I believe, 70 damage times the amount of future cards you discard. You discard the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you shuffle them all back in, except the future cards. I believe it's very strong, very fun. You have the Iron Crown to do a huge amount of damage outputs. Lightning, so you hit some relatively good weaknesses and things. I know, it's a fun archetype. He always does these fun, silly decks sort of thing in this one, but honestly, they do have always a lot of legs to it. But now let's look at the metagame from the City League, and oh boy, has it absolutely changed. We are going back to Lugia numbers, 31% of the top 16 results of the past 3 days in Japan City League. The first time of the this format has been allocated to Charizard. Now, we already knew Charizard was already not going to be losing anything. It was already replacing Battle VIP Pass with a stronger card, which was the Buddy Poffin, which can be used at any time of the game. And that's really about it. It lost. It gained a much stronger archetype. And there is no path to peak anymore. There's no ability lock. There's nothing to keep Charizard in check. There's no really strong grass Pokemon, except obviously the Iron Leaves, which we're going to talk about very soon. But honestly, it's Charizard. It is super, super dominant. 31% of the metagame. That is insane numbers of this sort of sport. But if we look at the rest of the metagame, we're seeing that Chien-Pao and Roy Moon are just about under there, being 13.8 and 10.7%. This honestly is, again, a bit shocking. Chien-Pao, a lot of people thought, oh, it's going to go okay in post-rotation, but seeing this result, I think it's already clocked on that way, maybe I should constantly be playing Chien-Pao, make it a little bit better. I'm used to saying Buddy Poffin, that Buddy Poffin is super, super powerful. Getting that Frigibacks any time in the game, you don't need to rely on such an explosive first turn of the game. You can have that explosive mid to late game by getting out those Frigibacks, by getting out that mana fee. Chien-Pao becomes incredibly strong because of that. And also, you say goodbye to cross switchers. No, you say hello to Prime Catcher. Prime Catcher just works super, super well in Chien-Pao. You can get that combo piece out really, really nice and easily. Again, we've got the return of ace specs and stuff like that. I think the Chien with Charizard as well, it has 2 very, very strong sort of ace specs, which we're going to talk about very soon when we talk about the list. Roy Moon as well, kind of like convolve into the Ancient box, which is the one, the Baby Roy Moon, which does 70 plus 10 for each Ancient card in your discard pile. You can have at least 1 or 2 of these as a good secondary attacking option in Roy Moon, or just purely play that Ancient box, which is doing pretty okay over in the metagame. Golden Go, again, very, very strong. We're seeing all the decks which did pretty well in the previous rotation carry on that success. Golden Go is a very, very strong archetype, especially teamed up with Palkia. This having that really good secondary attacker, as well as also an amazing V-Star sort of attack ability, so you can get that time out those Greninja plays, especially if we see that Chien-Pao and Charizard are basically 40%, nearly 50% of the metagame. It's very, very strong. Now, another brand new archetype, which we're finally going to talk about, which is made a graphic, is Great Tusk Mill. Now, this is a deck which I honestly didn't think too much about it, but it came an absolute storm this past weekend in the City League, as well as also Gym Challenges. What it does is basically discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Very staple, but if you play a Ancient Supporter card, you get to discard 3 additional cards. So discarding 4 cards from the top of your opponent's deck, plus also having Clippers so they can't have this massive hand side, plus also having a single price attacking option, Mill is finally an absolute huge threat. We haven't seen Mill this strong in such a long time, I believe, since we saw like the days of Durant back in the Noble Victors sort of era. So really fun to see this deck kind of evolve into it. Loftia dropped all the way from being like 13% to 3.6. That's an absolute loss. It loses Path to Peak, it loses Battle VIP Path, so it becomes a much more slower archetype. Didn't even do that well, I feel like, overall, but definitely a deck to really consider about. 2 decks who have definitely risen from the ashes is Giratina and Lugia V-Star. Now, why on earth are these very, very good? Well, Lugia does gain this brand new attacking option, Cinccino. Cinccino does 70 times the amount of special energies attached to all of your Pokemon in play. It is a stage 1, but Minccino, sorry. I always get them both confused. But so is Lugia V Star, so you can get it out. You can effectively have 6 different special energies out in play by turn 2 and dealing a huge amount of one-hit KO potential with a single price attacking option. Lugia is finally a big threat again. Yes, I know it can be a bit weak to Greninja plays and Sableye as well, especially, but by being very, very weak sort of low HP Pokemon, but it's very, very powerful, very, very strong attack. As well, you can team up with Weirded to get another big one-hit KO that sort of way as well. So honestly, Lugia is here to stay. Now, Archetypes was definitely a big surprise. I think Arceus, when it loses Path to the Peak, really did struggle to see exactly where it could kind of be. And we're going to talk about some of his decks as well. But really fitting in that Iron Leaves into the deck, you can have a much stronger Charizard matchup. You can just power up your Pokemon, put down their Iron Leaves when you get to the App Spot, move all the energies to it, and then attack that way to get this big one-hit KOs on Charizard. And sometimes they can have a little bit harder to respond as long as you have an access to get another Iron Leaves out the next turn. I just think it's in a very, very good position. It finally has a decent Charizard matchup and generally could be something to consider about. So I know I rambled on a little bit about where the meta is kind of like shaping up. If we just look at the results here, it's a completely different story. We see the Charizard obviously was the most dominant archetype being number 1. That's no surprise at all. Chien-Pao being number 3. Again, a big, not that surprise as well. But Box, I kind of like Arc-Pile, put them all into one, going in there at number 2 with 3 wins. Now, yes, there are some Guja builds that did do well. Alolan Vulpix did pretty good as well, but obviously the Archetypes build was definitely the strongest version of the deck to play. I just think it's a really fun surprise to see Archetypes kind of like rise from the ashes. It hasn't really had the best results in quite a while, but seeing it kind of like translate in post-rotation is making me think that Arceus still has a lot of legs, especially in this new format. Stall and Mill did incredibly well. By Snorlax and the Stall getting 2 wins and even having the Iron Tusk getting 1 as well. What I really like about this is it's showing that we're in such a good metagame that Control and Stall are basically as one sort of thing. Control, Stall and Mill all in sort of one different variants. We're seeing 2 different things. We're not just seeing a one straight this is just a straightforward how we play control. Well, there's also Pidgeot control, which is again, we've had that before. We've had Pidgeotto control, but now we've gone down to Pidgeot EX control, and even having Great Tusk as well. That just shows we're in such a great metagame. We need to add more switching cards, maybe more recovery to really kind of counter out this sort of format as well. If we're seeing these really good single prize controlling sort of aspects as well, we might finally be in a very healthy metagame by having this such a good aspect and good metagame for control. And finally, we'll talk about the Ancient Box. That's that Roy Moon and that new Crydon as well, which again, you may see the results and go, these are pretty low numbers. Like Charlie, literally a few weeks ago, we were talking about Charizard getting 19 wins. Well, yes, they are obviously a bit low because we're only going off 3 days. People aren't really going to have access to the cards, but next week, we're going to have a ton of results and I'm super, super excited to talk about it. So, without further ado, let's just jump into actually some of these new archetypes, these new decks, and way how they're evolving. We're seeing this is a good way to play Charizard, kind of like going back to the Evolution TM, except we're not playing the Evolution TM. We just go straight back to the barrel. There's a little bit slower sort of build for this sort of archetype, but because we've always seen that Pidgeot build be really fast, really aggressive, but they are respecting the TM Depot probably a little bit more. The format, I feel like it's just a little bit slower by not having Benefit P-Pass, not having Mew. But you still have, obviously, Roy Moon, which can absolutely one-hit KO pretty much anything. But having that little bit of a slower approach, I really like this one. Maybe that's where how Bibarel can really kind of shine as a really good partner for Charizard. Get a return of Entei and also Radiant Charizard as a very good secondary attacking option. We can see here that they're opting to play Prime Catcher. Now, there's an of debate for Charizard. There are 3 very, very strong aspects which work well with it. Prime Catcher, obviously, for Gusting Effect. We also have that new Tool Belt, which does 50 more damage to an EX. It pretty much means you can KO likes of Chien-Pao the Roman a lot more earlier, but more importantly, Charizard EXs. It really helps you in the mirror match. But also you can have the cape, giving it effectively 430 HP. That is a huge amount of HP. You can chuck that on the Bibarel, you can chuck that on the Minion, you can chuck that on pretty much anything as well. Heck, even Radiant Charizard, having basically 260 HP on a single prize attacking option, that's very, very difficult for some decks to kind of like keep up with. So that's generally a reason why I think those sort of options are very, very strong here. Again, we're seeing the build hasn't really changed that much. They've literally just taken out Benefit P-Pass, added Poffins, and obviously a few other cards as well. Still respecting Sableye by having the Giratina here. But yeah, this is one way to play Charizard. And the other build is the Pidgeot build as well, with that tool card which I mentioned. This build here is still the classic one, which we're used to seeing as well, do very, very well at every single regionals, I feel like here. What I like about this build especially is they are respecting basic Pokemon attacking option. They are playing their team the Team League headquarters. I really like this one. They're playing the Devolution TM. They're going back to the Rotom. They're going back to Forest Hill Stone, Devolution TM, as well as also a Vitality Bank to additional 10 more damage. This deck here is very, very strong. Very much, I enjoy this sort of archetype. I think it's a good way to play Charizard. This is more similar line to where I would kind of play with this one. I still like the Radiant Charizard as just an attacking option. A single price Pokemon, which get these big one-hit kills, is just super, super strong. Heck, even chuck in the Devolution TM in there, it becomes very, very strong, potentially not even needing energy to attack. Very much love this style of archetype. Now let's go into Giratina. This is a deck we talked about a little bit as well. Obviously, a lot of people were surprised about where is the best way to play it here. And we can see here, it has changed quite a bit. It goes back to the Team League headquarters. Could this be the best new control sort of archetype to kind of like play around with this deck? You obviously need your special energy. You're not going to be playing Temple of Sinnoh, but kind of like making Roy Moon have a full energy attack, as well as also pretty much anything in the format having a huge amount of this relying on additional energy attachment can be a little bit quite scary as well. They're playing this belt as well. Pretty much, you attach that to your Giratina V-Star. You're doing 330 damage. You're one hit KO Charizard as well. So you've got Giratina and you've got Iron Leaves to get one hit KOs on your Charizard EXs. So very, 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 very powerful. I think this deck definitely has a bit of legs to it. I'm really excited to see where the meta is going to evolve for Giratina. Could it finally constantly be making the graphic turn like week after week after week, or just not have the best stadium card to play with it and kind of come a little bit weak as well? Definitely something to keep you on your radar if you are testing for EUIC already. Chien-Pao as well, and my absolute favorite archetype, which has been around in years, kind of fallen a little bit out of favor recently, purely on the basis that I think the metagame is just too wide for Chien-Pao to kind of evolve to it. But this build here, I think it's pretty good. They are playing these ciphers, basically the Mallory reprint, which gets to search your deck for 2 cards, shuffle your deck and put those 2 in the top. This works really well with the likes of Pokestop, Bibarel, as well as also Radiant Greninja. So this could be a really saving factor for this one. Instead of relying on having 4 copies of Cross Switcher, we can play Prime Catcher, so you can easily get your pieces out for a Greninja play to get additional 2 prizes from a mana fee, much, much easier, and you can rely on your deck to have more spaces for having some other options. I think this deck is very, very strong, very, very powerful. You are relying on a lot more sort of searching cards well, but Buddy Poffin can work especially well in the late game as well. Pretty much getting all of your basic Pokemon except your Chien-Pao, Greninja, as well as also Iron Hands. I really like this one. I think Iron Hands will work a lot better in this deck, especially with Prime Catcher, especially with the ciphers where I forget its actual supporter name, but honestly, it's a very, very powerful deck. I think it could definitely have a lot more legs into it, especially if Charizard's doing really well. Chien-Pao has a good Charizard matchup and only going to get better, especially if it still plays the Iron Hands and Greninja, especially with Prime Catcher. Another one we're going to talk about is control. We are seeing Stall, and Stall honestly is doing pretty well overall in the metagame. One thing I absolutely love about Stall right now is it's just so strong and so aggressive. It gains so many really good cards, and we can see that some of them are in fact made it into here. We are seeing that Eureka, which gets to look at your opponent's hand and discard 2 item cards you may find there. The reason why I absolutely love that sort of card, especially in this sort of list as well, purely because you can have that extra knowledge as well. You have Erica's Invitation. You can also have Grab It if you choose to play that one. But by getting to additional discarding factor, that purely does make the deck absolutely disgustingly strong. I think it's really, really powerful as well. You play a Chiyu for that little bit of that discarding factor, and even that Mantike as well. Finally see a little bit of more play as well. That's honestly super, super strong as well. I love where Stall is kind of like going with this one. But if you don't like Stall, why not play Mill? This is this deck here, which I honestly love this one. We can see both of them are opting to play the basically the big cape, which gives additional 100 more HP. Basically, great Tusk with having 240 HP. For a single price Pokemon, that is an absolute beast to deal with it. And if you can't do that, you can just do additional 60, have 200 HP with a future booster energy capsule. Now, what I like about this one is it does play quite a good disruptive cards. We are seeing the 4 copies of Countercatcher because you're always going to be behind in prizes because you're never taking any prizes, and even those Clippers as well. It's really good, especially in the late game. If your opponents just keep on drawing, you just card till you both have 5 cards in hand. That's very, very powerful. You are playing very, very aggressively, so you are going for your deck pretty quickly, especially with the likes of Trekking Shoes, the likes of Pokegear, and also your starters as well as the Ancient Expeditioner. The reason why because your starter you're drawing 3, the other one you're drawing 6, so you're drawing a ton of cards. So it's definitely something to be considered about, especially with great Tusk. Like, you're going to mill yourself out while you're milling out your opponent. Just kind of like respect that as well. Try and get that Stall sort of factoring option. You're not going to have what Snorlax does by having that block ability. You're just going to try and like mill out your opponent's deck as quickly as possible. Now we're looking at Ancient Box. I really, really love Ancient Box as well. Pretty much it's like Roy Moon, but just a little bit different. We're seeing nearly every single ace spec be played in all these lists which I've shown, which shows we don't just have that prime catcher as our most optimal one to play. Roy Moon as well, having that secondary attacking option, the 70 plus 10 for each of your ancient Pokemon you have in your discard pile. You play 4 copies of both for the supporters, having that starter and the other one for that draw factor. Also having a future booster energy capsule, earthen vessel, and or even that flutter mane, the ancient Mischievous, to kind of like shut off the basic Pokemon's abilities, which is very, very strong, as well as also the ace spec to draw as many cards as your ancient Pokemon you have in play. The reason why I like this deck a lot is purely because you have Roy Moon as a secondary attacking option. You can be a single price attacking deck until you go into Roy Moon, be a single 2 price attacker, and absolutely get these big one-hit KOs turn after turn after turn. Saying goodbye to Mew means that Roy Moon doesn't have that really good, sometimes that really good psychic dark weak deck, but we still have Gardevoir, but Gardevoir isn't really representing as much as we kind of thought it would do. And kind of like finish off other decks as well, we've got to look at Lugia. This is that Lugia which I talked about as well, that Chinchino and Minchino, and the 70 times the amount of special energy you have attached to it. We obviously can play that new special energy, which means that it can't be KO'd from the likes of a Roy Moon Frenzy Gouging or a Star Requiem. Very, very powerful, like I said, instant KOs, getting rid of that with this sort of effect, stopping Sableyes as well. It's very really good ways to kind of go around it. Could this be the return of Lugia? Is this the beginning of the end from an absolute Lugia dominant format? I don't think so, because we're seeing this ace specs as well. They are playing that Giant Cape, which honestly is seen a lot more play in certain decks than I kind of would have thought about. Prime Catcher, a lot of people went, oh, this is the best one. I thought Cape was a bit of a mediocre sort of ace spec, but we're seeing it have a lot of good usage in these single price attacking option, really making these 2 price decks are really utilizing so much of their resources. But yeah, Lugia winning, doing pretty well as well. I'm very much excited to see where the meta is going to evolve. So now let's talk about gym battle. These are some gym challenges which I've talked about. They're very much similar to league challenges. And you can see the results here are vastly different from the gym city league. Obviously, we look at the city league with a little bit more purely on the basis that these are basically like leagues, which you play well. City leagues are very much like league cups, they're a bit more meta driven. They get some points, sports in worlds, invite for Japan. But this one here, we see there is a little bit of change. Raging Bolt got 11 wins. We saw Great Tusk got 7 and Charizard got 6. As you lost Tina, kind of like make the graphic here. But again, no Gardevoir, not doing pretty well. We saw Roy Moon did pretty well. Ancient and Future Box both got 4 wins apiece. Lugia, Miraidon, even Lost Box did pretty well. Same thing with Goldingo. What I like about this is that you get rewarded here for so many creative choices. And we just look at that by looking at this Raging Bolt with Gardevoir EX. A lot of people thought, oh, haha, this could be a really fun way to play it. Well, honestly, it could be. Having the reliance on getting your Sandy Shocks, but you can only really play that if your opponent is taking 2 prizes. Your opponent can just go around that, spread loads of damage around there, and then you can always just rely on it. Well, I have to use Sada, and now I'm not getting a big energy output. And they kind of like can fall behind a little bit, but Gardevoir kind of puts that little bit of pressure on there. It's making sure that saying, I have a really good draw factor, I can Scream Tail secondary attacking because I'm going to play Future Booster Energy Capsule because of I'm playing Raging Bolt to get 300 HP. I can do big damage output with Scream Tail. I know Gardevoir has kind of lost its place by losing its strongest attacking option, but you still have Curly for draw factor, you still have Moonlit Hill to heal some damage. But yeah, I really, really like this version of Raging Bolt. Another version is this one here, which is similar to where we kind of like thought about the Sandy Shock, the Crydon, but playing Palkia. Palkia is really good to get that V-Star, to get some energies into play. You can get some cool, funky Greninja play, but also you can hit against Fire Weak Pokemon and have a hit for 260 with a 280 HP Pokemon. Very much, very, very powerful. We've seen Palkia kind of become its kind of like new lease of life as a secondary attacking option, like Goldingo and now potentially in Raging Bolt. I'm really excited to this one. I think it's very, very strong. Very nice to play around with the energy switches as well. Could this be the best way to play Raging Bolt? But yeah, I need to see it be translated purely on the basis in the City Leagues this week. But honestly, it could be one of those options. Ancient Box as well. This is a different version. A pure single price attacking option with your Roy Moon and Crydon the secondary as your main attacking option. Crydon obviously does 730 plus 30 times the amount of ancient Pokemon you have in play, pretty much maxing out at 180, which is 180, which is pretty good. But also having that shred attack, going through anything on the opponent's active is very, very powerful. Again, having that slivering as well, which I'm really, really a big fan of it. A fun deck as well. Could see some play. Could this be the next Lost Box? I hope so, because I really, really like this one. I'm loving this gimmick, which we've kind of seen play. It's a different version of Future Box. Kind build, which I'm very similar, kind of been testing with as well. That other Miraidon EX, which does a 220 damage and does 60 plus 100 more if your opponent has any damage counters on there for a lightning and psychic energy. Could be something to see plays around with it. I really like this Miraidon EX as a good secondary attacking. I kind of went with, I generally think that Iron Valiant EX is much stronger, purely because you get that loads more damage output as well. But you're already going to have your board with at least 2 to 3 Iron Crowns in this one. That's why I think Miraidon EX can really kind of fall into the fray. I like the Morty as well. Morty is basically a better Xinius. Discard a card, draw a card amount of your opponent Pokemon you have in play. This can kind of be a surprise. You can draw 1 card or 6. Very, very powerful. I think this deck is really, really strong, but we're going to see if it's right for the metagame. That's why I'm excited to talk about it week after week after week. And Lustina as well. It's a build which I would personally play for Lustina, playing that Ditto so you can get Buddy Poppin, get it out, then you can get any of the cards you might want to have, get the Cramorant, get the Greninja, and also the Giratina, especially in the first turn of the game. Playing that new Ace-Spec card with just 50 more damage, I think is just the best way to play Lustina. By getting that Star Requiem as well as also Lost Impact, pretty much additionally getting those 2 KOs on Charizard pretty much can put you in that bit more of a favor. You're not relying on the likes of Sableye and maybe even putting a TMT evolution just to help you in that sort of match game as well. Generally, I think this is a very, very strong deck, very, very powerful, but I think the meta may not be right for it, purely on the basis it doesn't have Path to Peak to really get that really aggressive Roxanne Path counter catcher turn, which is desperately required. And just hope you guys have enjoyed that video. I know that was a ton of lists, but honestly, I'm really excited about post-rotation. There are so many brand new archetypes as well. And will Charizard's reign generally continue? We've seen this before where Charizard has done very, very well in the metagame. A lot of people in Japan love playing Charizard, and they already had a ton of the pieces. All you had to do was just get Buddy Poppin and one of the many ace specs that Charizard can work with it, and then you've got a really, really good working functioning deck in this rotation. Could any of the new decks break through? This is the one thing I want to talk about. Will we see Future Box? Will we see Ancient Box? Will we see a brand new version of Roaring Moon with the baby Roaring Moon to really kind of break through in the metagame? Generally, we could see that one, but having Charizard being one of the most BDIF, we might pretty much a clear BDF right now. We might see the return of grass Pokemon. That's why I think Arctina is going to do really, really well, purely on the basis of Iron Leaves. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this monster video for post-rotation. Thank you so, so much for your constant support. This is pretty much nearly like a 1-year anniversary special. So, thank you so much. You guys mean so much to me, and I really hope you have a brilliant rest of your day. And I'll be back in a couple of days' time for some brand new deck profiles for the new format. See you guys later. Bye for now.